We hear it literally all the time, right? The robots are coming for our paychecks. Well, let's just dive right into this explainer and unpack that whole anxiety. Because when we actually look at the economic data and the historical trends we're covering today, a completely different, almost totally counterintuitive story emerges.
So here's the core paradox we're dealing with. Making intelligence cheaper and more efficient is actually expanding the demand for human work, not shrinking it. I mean, think about it. If a cognitive task suddenly costs a fraction of a cent to execute, basic economics tells us we aren't just going to pocket those savings and sit on our hands. No way. We're going to demand a whole lot more of it.
And as industry leaders like NVIDIA's Jensen Huang point out, the scale of intelligence production is going to soon eclipse energy production. Like electricity and the internet changed the world, absolutely, but manufacturing intelligence is going to completely dwarf both of them. It's radically shifting the entire psychological landscape of work and creating these massive new industries, rather than just causing mass unemployment like everyone fears.
This counterintuitive reality actually has a name, and it dates all the way back to 1865. It's called the Jevons paradox. So, William Stanley Jevons noticed that as steam engines became more efficient, we didn't use less coal. Actually, we burned exponentially more coal simply because more industries could suddenly afford it. Efficiency didn't shrink demand, it completely exploded it.
Now, compare the hard physical limits of coal to the infinite elasticity of the modern mind. It's wild. In the 19th century, physical efficiency lowered costs and blew up the demand for physical factory labor. Today, in the 21st century, algorithmic efficiency is lowering execution costs, and that is exploding the demand for cognitive orchestration. Because, honestly, there is no natural ceiling to human curiosity, analysis, or business strategy.
When we look at the raw data, this paradox becomes pretty undeniable. Take a routine pull request code review. That used to cost around $48 in fully loaded senior engineer time, right? Well, now it costs just 72 cents for an AI agent to do it. 72 cents. That is a staggering 66 times cheaper.
And it's definitely not just coding. These kind of staggering cost collapses are happening literally everywhere across the knowledge economy. An IT password reset, that's 86 times cheaper now. Yes, paying a human $18 just to help someone click forgot password is thankfully becoming a thing of the past. Drafting a long-form article, 156 times cheaper. A single resume screen, down from $7.20 to just 18 cents. To put that into perspective, organizations can suddenly afford to process a whole world of dead data that was previously just locked away in these dusty, unavailable backlogs.
Because of this demand paradox, there's this almost surreal awakening happening right now in business ops. Imagine this world where once ignored data and dormant tasks are suddenly just sprouting to life. We're talking niche market translations, 100% historical data reconciliations, totally personalized outreach at massive scale. Before, these new use cases just weren't viable at the old prices. They sat there. But now, lower costs for analysis mean companies are finally tackling these massive backlogs. AI is basically orchestrating this surreal collage of latent demand, creating huge new pipelines of work that desperately require human direction and oversight.
And this huge explosion of tasks really marks our transition from the simple chatbot era to what we call the agentic era. We're moving from those human-prompted one-to-one interactions to autonomous agents that just operate infinitely in the background, 24/7. It's a massive shift, and it's driving this insatiable demand for compute power and hardware infrastructure to support what is essentially an unstoppable new digital workforce.
So, in this new era, knowledge workers who are using production AI agents are already recovering a median of 6.4 hours every single week. Guys, that's nearly a full workday, just handed back to you. The real question, of course, is what do we actually do with all that reclaimed time?
Well, let's look at the 2 sigma problem and how we're solving a 40-year educational bottleneck.
For 40 years, Benjamin Bloom's research showed us that one-to-one mastery tutoring could elevate average students all the way to the top 2% of their class. But the bottleneck was always money. Society just couldn't afford it. Even today, traditional classrooms still have one teacher for 30 students, which inevitably leads to these accumulating knowledge gaps. But by dropping the cost of highly personalized, mastery-based tutoring to basically zero, AI agents are unlocking this latent academic potential that society previously just couldn't afford to tap into. It's amazing.
Actually, let's jump back to the professional world for a second. Look at how we're actually using these tools according to Perplexity's Comet browser. We aren't just messing around asking it to write poems. 36% of our queries are to streamline productivity and workflow, and another 21% are dedicated to learning and courses. knowledge workers are heavily using these agents not as replacements, but as digital coworkers to help process these massive new workloads we just talked about.
However, the return on investment for this agentic workforce varies wildly depending on the level of mandatory human review required. Like customer service agents, they pay for themselves in just 4.1 months, super fast. But in engineering or legal fields, it takes quite a bit longer. Why is that? Well, because an AI might draft a legal document or code in seconds, but a human professional's judgment is still absolutely non-negotiable.
And the hard proof of this comes directly from the World Economic Forum. They're projecting that this technological shift will create 78 million more jobs than it displaces globally. 78 million. The automation of 20 to 40% of our routine tasks actually elevates human value, rewarding AI-fluent workers with a massive 56% wage premium. That is a real game changer.
As the AI handles all that boilerplate execution, we are seeing human value radically reconcentrate. Think about it like a pie chart. Only 15% of your value is in routine execution now. 35% is orchestration and strategy, and a massive 50% of your value is now human judgment and genuine empathy. That right there is your competitive edge going forward.
So, the absolute ultimate takeaway from this explainer is this. AI executes, and humans direct. You're no longer just a producer grinding out first drafts or basic code. You, my friend, are now the director of an infinitely scalable digital workforce.
I'm leaving you with this final thought. In a world where latent demand is fully unlocked and all this dormant data comes spectacularly alive, how will you orchestrate this new power? As the cost of intelligence approaches zero, what impossible problem will you direct your agents to solve next? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.